You're about to hear from Jenn MacAusland. She'll introduce herself. She's a staff member here for a number of months, and we've kept in touch, and she's going to be teaching a number of different classes, one including on permaculture as well. That's her other passion, apart from being health expert into nutrition. So I don't want to take too much time with her because, yeah, we got a short window here, 45 minutes, including some questions. The evolution of the jaw, how the teeth in the jaw, kind of a window into your health. So let me just load up the PowerPoint here, and then we'll get going. Okay. Where did that go? Okay, back here. I had it open. Oh yeah, that's it right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Will it come up here behind us?
It will, yeah. Oh, there we are. Present mode.
Yeah. Oh, I think you're blocked. Yeah, you're good. Yeah.
All right. Well, without further ado, here is Jenn. Evolution of the jaw.
Hey, everyone. Thanks. It's always so, those things nerve-wracking, but at the same time, I'm comfortable in front of people. So it's like, okay, how do you balance that, right? Sorry? Oh, sure. Yeah, no problem. So my name's Jenn. I have a varied background. Prior to what I do now, I used to be a social worker and I was a counselor. And I worked with the government and did all that fun stuff. And had always had an interest in nutrition and wellness, and then kind of expanded after I wanted to leave the response team. It was a little hectic and intense for a bit. So I left that and upgraded all my health and wellness courses. And then that was a big, long journey that I went on and took traditional Chinese medicine courses and kinesiology and yoga and body alignment, nutrition, iridology. I took facial analysis and mineral analysis, and face mapping and tongue and pulse. And those kind of fun things. So lots of stuff. Went on after that and took my permaculture design, because I also am a plant medicine guide and herbalist. It seemed like a natural progression to take permaculture from after that, because it all kind of combines in together, right? So how did we get here? So evolution of the jaw. It actually started within my own health and wellness when I started noticing different things, and with my kids, when I noticed how in a resting state, because when I worked for the government, I used to be an assessor. And so not that I'm judging any of you here, I promise you, but I naturally assess people. And so with that comes looking at how the body functions and how it operates and how we sit and how we talk and what we do with our hands and how our jaw naturally rests. And that kind of made me dive into that rabbit hole that branches off in many different ways. And so what I recognize is that a lot of people in the resting state, and this is something you can kind of do as we sit here and go through this, a lot of people will rest with the mouth slightly open. And some who have the mouth closed, that's fine, but the teeth will be separate. And the tongue will either be floating in the middle or pressed up to the top. So I started noticing all these different things, and that's when I started, diving into it all and recognizing that, hey, there's more to explore here. So that's where we dive in. The full course that I'll be doing on this, and I was speaking to a friend before I came in here, and what I said was, it's such a deep rabbit hole of information that I could literally do a 2-week course and still give you more information. So I'm really trying to condense it in this period, but also in the next one, so that it's manageable and that you can take that information and then utilize it in your life. Because that's my goal with everything that I do. I want to see all of you healthy and happy and have this information and try and spread that to others, right? Pass it down. So today we're not going to cover all of this. Am I blocking the, okay, good. Oh, it didn't switch. Guess I have to switch it on here. Sorry about that. There we go. So today, told you a little bit about myself. And these are the things that typically I would cover during a course. So things like genetics, jaw development, agriculture, evolution of the jaw, hence the title, resting state of the jaw and jaw challenges, meridian lines, and mitigating unknown considerations. And then in the full course, we'll do like a homemade tooth powder that you can take home with you and that kind of stuff. Oops, wrong one. I have to change two screens. Oh, there we go. So this is just me and one of my pups who's no longer that small. He is 8 months old and he's massive. He's St. Bernard and a Bernese mountain dog. That's when he was like a month old. So now he's like a horse. Okay, here we go. Oh, it went backwards for some reason. Sorry about that. There we go. So genetics. So what is old is new again. So with genetics, we were once, sorry, I just need to go. We once thought that they were the only influence on our jaws. So basically, who your parents were, who your grandparents were, well, that's just what you're stuck with, and that's too bad. And go to the dentist or the orthodontist or some kind of specialist and get braces or get your jaw cracked or whatever, and that's just too bad. That's just what people do. And I was one of those people. As a child, my parents, I had one of my front tooth slightly came over my other tooth. It was very minimal, but because of the way that the world is, I was like, oh gosh, I want to get that fixed. And so what they do is they go in very invasively and they force the jaw into a position that it's not naturally adapted or developed into. And then what do you have to do? You have to wear a retainer to make it stay, right? And so my teeth are straight. I have a pretty good smile, I think. It's okay. But it's forced that way. And so had I known now, I was only a child, right? Had I known then what I know now, then obviously we would have looked at approaching it a little bit differently, right? And so expanding the palate and having a nice wide palate provides a really strong structure of the jaw. So you are not your genetics. So even though, we have this line behind us of grandparents and parents and great grandparents, and all of that's wonderful. And we can also change it and adapt it in some ways. So that's something just to remember. So Weston A. Price was one of the first people to really dive into this in the 20s. So he did this in the 20s and 30s and 40s. Most of you probably know him. Usually the Light Seller has this book, but I highly recommend it. I'll leave it up here. You guys can take a picture or take a look at it afterwards. But it's all about his research about the jaw. And what he discovered was that it originally started because one of his children died of a root canal issue. And so he's a dentist. And so he dove into all this work. And what he discovered was that, this root canal could have been prevented in many ways. And so as he started traveling the world, he realized that, wow, why is it that primitive societies have such different jaws and they don't have access to dental care and they don't have access to toothpastes and all these fancy things? So what's going on here? And so this was the case in multiple places, not just one place. He traveled everywhere, from Antarctica to Australia to everywhere. And he studied all of this. And there was one thing that was the same, and that they lacked malocclusion issues. They lacked dentist, involvement. They lacked, issues anywhere to do with the jaw or the teeth. They didn't have very many caries, or they called them caries or cavities. And so he found all this really interesting. And so he dove in even deeper. And if you're not familiar with Weston A. Price, so something just popped up on the screen here. So he was originally from Ohio. And like I said, he he was originally from Ohio in the 20s. And then he did all kinds of work with the NDA, so the National Dentistry Association. And he was also hired by the military and the Navy to educate all of them. So he has a really, really well sought out background. He passed away. But some of his findings that he found was that children and adults, like I said, not exposed to Western diets had different teeth. They had different jaws. They had mental health was different. Their overall well-being was different. They slept different. So all of these things were documented and recorded. And it was, you know, not just a couple of cases. There was tens of thousands of cases of this. So he realized he was onto something. As I mentioned, they had literally zero tooth decay and no malocclusion issues. And he noted that they didn't have any of the health issues that we talked about. So one of the other things that he noted was that people in the primitive societies that he studied and went to, some of their older siblings, or sorry, their younger siblings, ended up having all these issues because they were exposed to these Western diets and to these Western things that were happening. So the older children or siblings in the group had nice, beautiful, wide jaws, white teeth, no malocclusion or caries or cavities, but the younger ones did. And you saw completely different, where they had no strong jaw, the jaw would drop off. You see sometimes people will have like no jaw, things like that. The jaw would be either forward or back. They would have breathing issues, sleeping issues, sinus issues. And he was like, wow, this is really interesting. So he dove in deeper. So what his influence was that he brought forward, that he noticed that Western society brought forward was rampant tooth decay, which we all know is like, I mean, how much money does do dentistry make today? And yes, some of it is necessary, absolutely. But if it can be prevented, then why wouldn't we want to dive into that, right? Modern illness and disease is way up, way up as it used to be. Malocclusion issues, like I mentioned, narrowed faces. That's another one. We see lots of people who don't have, you know, really nice wide jaws through the bottom. We see it really narrowed and come down, not really have a chin sometimes. Longer jaws, potential for emotional and physical issues. I see this all the time in my practice and with my clients, is that, you know, some parents may come in with kids and they think, you know, they're being behavioral or they can't sleep or, you know, these kinds of issues. And as soon as I see the child or even the adult, sometimes I'm like, oh, I know what's going on. And it sounds really funny, but it's true. Because if we don't sleep well and our brains are not able to wash the way that they need to, then we end up waking up in the morning, even though we might have slept as a child for 10 to 12 hours, you're going to be cranky. And then if you add into that issues like with the diet, then obviously you can see where this might go. Yeah, and then there's also sleeping issues, like I mentioned. And then Dr. Price, he's one of the first to note that our genes can be influenced for the better or for the worse, which makes sense with everything we're talking about, right? That's okay. It's my agent calling. Take a message. Yeah, and our diet heavily influences the outcome, right? So we all, you know, I'm not here to judge anybody on how you eat or what you choose to do with your life, but I'm just here to give you facts. And so what he did discover, and I would agree with him, is that diet heavily influences the outcome. So even if we're doing all these other things right, and we're going to the dentist all the time, and we're, you know, mostly eating healthy organic food, it's the type of food that you're eating that could potentially cause some issues as well. Oh, sure. Absolutely. Yeah. You don't like Barney? What? I hope no one's named Barney here. Not that it's a bad name. My youngest is like, what are you going to name him? You have to name him something that doesn't insult anyone. I'm like, I don't know any Barneys. Hopefully there's no Barney here. Sorry about that. Yeah, so the diet is something that we'll dive into. So minerals are something else that he talked about. He realized that minerals are vital for the outcome of your well-being. I do facial analysis, and part of that is looking at the face, because by the time things get to the face, the body has already been so depleted from it that it shows on the face, and that all has to do with minerals. And that's to do with Dr. Schultzer. Back in the 1800s. And what he did is he started looking at the patients who were alive and patients who had passed away. And he would do autopsies on them. And he would reflect and look at their bone density, at different organs in their body. And he realized, wow, people who have this issue, for example, all have this mineral depleted in the body or depleted in the mouth or whatever. And so Dr. Price also catapulted off of that information. And as he discovered and looked at all these jaws and all these different teeth and all these different, primitive societies, he realized they really didn't have any mineral deficiencies. And so mineral deficiencies are the number one thing. And so that's something we will dive into deeper in the longer course, but I just really wanted to mention that here. That's one of his main findings. Proper development of the face requires vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E, and vitamin K2. That was the other discovery that he realized, that it was rampant with every single case. They all needed that. So vitamin A only ever from an animal source or natural source. Never take a supplement that is vitamin A, please. And always get it from a food source like liver or, from cod liver oil, those kinds of things. Vitamin D, which is technically hormone D. It's not really a vitamin, as we all know. And technically it's not even one hormone, it's multiple, but that's a long topic and something else we can dive into another day. But hormone D, again, only from a natural source. I go against the grain most of the time. And I can tell you that it would be 1 in a million that I recommend any client take a supplement of vitamin D. We can get it from cod liver oil, and we can also get it from things like liver or organs, and we can get it from the sun, right? So being in Canada, we're brainwashed into thinking that we need to, get it from a supplement because of half the year. But if we eat right and we do it right, then you don't need to. You store it in your body. So that's something to remember. And then vitamin E, only source clean vitamin E, not things from like sunflower oil or soy, because oftentimes it'll be a nice vitamin D or vitamin E brand. But then when you look into it, you're like, oh my gosh, they're putting like safflower oil as their vitamin E. So really look into it. And there's a couple really clean brands out there. MitoLife would be one, and Lifeblood would be another. So if you want to take a vitamin E, then I recommend you look at those two. I don't get anything paid for that or anything. And then vitamin K2. So that's the other one. Oftentimes they'll pair it with vitamin D. I don't like that. So you can find it by itself, and there's lots of really good products who have just vitamin K2. Okay. And then foods that were noted to include these things that we're talking about, like I said, liver and organs, eggs from pasture-raised chickens. So really, even if they're organic from the grocery store, just question. So find a farmer, look around you. I would much rather see you all access a local farm and get your eggs than organic from Costco or something like that. Just because oftentimes they're still locked up, they're not pasture raised, right? And they're not getting those nutrients. Chickens need dead things and maggots and right? Like they really do. And all of this exposure, not in this kennel cage that they're fed organic grain and said, there you go, they're organic. So we really want to think about that kind of stuff as well. Yeah. Cod liver oil, like I mentioned, and raw milk and raw butter. If you can access it, again, be best friends with your farmer. There's a lot of pressure on us here in Canada, as opposed to the States where it's harder to find raw milk. But if you're a legit person and you make, good friends with your neighbor or your farmer, then you should be able to find it pretty good here. Fermented foods was another thing that, will hold a lot of the values of these things like cheese, yogurt, kefir, and sauerkraut. So those are some that I would recommend bringing into your diet if they're not already there. And I just made a little note here just about vitamin A, D, and K2, how they work synergistically together to support healthy jaw development. They're really important, and the immune system. So I often recommend cod liver. My kids eat it all, drink it or eat it all the time. Again, just source a good cod liver because some of them have other things in it. Somehow they put all these extra carriers that they're not necessary. So just source a clean one. Well, yeah. So that's one of those it depends answers. And the reason is because of the, what is the brand? What is the dosage on that brand? Typically, Genestra has a clean brand. If it's the pill, I don't like their liquid just because it has sunflower oil as a carrier. So that's a seed oil, right? We don't want to take that if we don't have to. But their pill, liquid gel, there's nothing in it but cod liver. So it's really clean. Malcolm has quite a few out here. in the fridge. So all of those that he has here, I highly recommend. And so just per dose, whatever that is. If you're trying to rectify an issue, then you can certainly double it for a short period of time. If you're really deficient in something like that, talking to a health practitioner, they should be able to assess where you're at by looking at your teeth and gums and tongue and that kind of stuff. So yeah, we can talk after too if you want. What else did I want to say about that? Oh yes, so Dr. Price's research also found about butter. One of the really cool things about butter was that vitamin D in butter and milk products actually contain much more than just vitamin D, or hormone D, as we want to say, contain all these different minerals and nutrients and really good butter, right? And again, with those milk products like raw milk. And so that's where Activator X came from. So if you read his book, he talks lots about Activator X and why it's so important and how it's very, very important for the jaw and the teeth development, as well as your immune system. So that's what he's referring to. Sorry, Activator X. So it's essentially vitamin D from the butter with all the different nutrients in good butter. So it's not, that's why I'm saying if you just take a supplement like vitamin D, you're just getting a synthetic vitamin. You're taking it, it's disruptive to your hormones and it's disruptive to your gut microbiome. You're not getting, whereas you just have a scoop of nice raw butter or good butter, you're getting all these extra things in there, right? So he refers to that as Activator X. Yeah, you bet. And then one other cool thing about being a Canadian, even though I'm sure we all are unsure about that right now, but in typical fashion, is that we actually, in our animals up here, we actually have higher amounts of Activator X. So if you source from a really good farm, then you will reap those rewards. Much higher vitamin A content and Activator X content up here. So that's kind of cool. So agriculture. So how did we get here? I just want to keep an eye on the time. Anybody have the time here? Okay, I better hurry. Rambling. Agriculture. So how did we get here? So we used to be foragers, right? So we used to be foragers. We used to have to go out and hunt for our food and forage tubers and things that are really hard on the jaw. So when we think about that stuff, think about things like jerky, right? Beef jerky, good beef jerky, right? Chewing off the bone, like working the jaw muscles. Guys and gals, this is a muscle, right? This is a muscle. We need to work it. So eating an apple is not really work for it. You're chewing. Like, if you think about primitive communities, get a picture. That's what they used to do. Here's your piece. You used to do. Now, I'm not suggesting that give up utensils and plates and go home and sit on the floor and do that. But if you wanted to, hey, do it. But the reality is that's how we used to eat and forage for food, right? And so that also has to do with the stuff that Malcolm teaches here in this lovely community. It's all about foraging and reaping the rewards of that forest, right? And for us and for our bodies. And so that was a really big thing. And then Industrial Revolution changed everything. So before that, we were much more apt to being on a farm and foraging our foods and hunting for our foods and really eating off the bone and really working the jaw. After Industrial Revolution came in, we have things like monoculture. And so it's like, oh, you want something to eat? Here's a smoothie. Oh, here's a salad. Like, how much is your jaw actually working, right? It's not. And so over time and over generations, you see that breakdown. Yeah. And we started eating out of convenience, right? So oftentimes in primitive societies, we just ate maybe once a day or twice a day. We fasted some of it. And when the tribe brought back food, or when when the cow was brought home, or whatever the case may be, that's when we would eat. But now it's like, oh, there's food available. Let me eat. Oh, there's this. Okay, let me drink. And so that also is a big part of the whole thing. And then I just talked about sprays on our food. So that's another thing, right? As we all know, I don't even have to talk about it. You guys are all visiting the light cellar. I know you're well-educated people. So sprays as well, that's definitely going to affect our jaws, our well-being, our hormones, our health, right? You can see that. And then utensils, I mentioned. People always think it's kind of funny when I talk about it, but it's true. Utensils have really brought us backwards in a lot of ways. I was guilty of it. I did Weston A. Price and baby-led weaning with my boys, and they had raw liver on eggs. I was all over it. Oh, but let me cut up your steak when you get a bit older into these tiny bite-sized pieces there, child, and you can eat that. And then I was like, what am I doing? They can have that big chunk of steak and start chewing on it. So I went backwards and started doing that again. But we're all guilty of it and we do it to ourselves, right? We buy these little tiny pieces, we chew a couple times because we're busy. Oh, I gotta get here, eat on the road. You swallow huge chunks of food and as I say to my kids, you guys are smart enough to know this, our bellies don't have teeth. That's what these are for, right? And we're not using them. And so we're really not exercising this the same way we do this, right? Oops, there we go. Keeping an eye on the time, how much time? Oh God, I gotta go quick. Oh, right there, thank you. So if we use Weston A. Price Foundation and the things I just talked about as a foundational piece, then we can comfortably build off that. Because I don't expect all of you to give up your utensils and Jen, guess what? Sending me pictures of you chewing on a cow leg or something. But we can use it as a foundational piece to learn from, right? And to move on from there. And so if we understand that the jaw is a working tool and not just part of the face, like our hair, right? Then we can move forward. So the jaw consists of the mandible and the maxilla. Okay. I brought a little guy. I'm going to be really quick, but you guys can look at it after. This is the only separate part of the face that we have from our skull. Everything else is intersected with our skull. So this bottom jaw is so important. It's so important to move it and exercise it, just like our biceps. Yeah, so I won't really get into this because I'm running out of time, but essentially what affects our jaws? Well, obviously all the things I just talked about. Also things like thumb sucking, soothers, bottles versus different nipples for the bottles, as well as breastfeeding, obviously in a good way. And I'm not judging anybody who couldn't breastfeed or can't or whatever. It's not this. This is just facts. Braces, orthodontic treatments, like I talked about my own experience, and then poor food choices and mineral deficiencies, right? So all of this together collectively creates the situation. So then how do we support the jaw effectively? Well, obviously food, like we talked about, different food choices. And then new parents, you can do late weaning, right? So you can choose to, wean your child a little bit later so that they're using their jaw more and eating more foods and breastfeeding longer if you can. And then also things like utilize tough foods, breastfeeding when you can. Yeah. So chewing sticks, I know you guys are like, what? I was going to bring you some today and I was like, no, I'll bring them for the longer class so I can explain. Chewing sticks. So yes, just like you give your dog a bone to chew on or a stick to chew on, when people can actually also chew. So I recommend locally foraging. I have a whole bunch that I'm going to bring to the big class, but they're actually off of my land in Water Valley. And my boys whittled them themselves. I promise they're clean. And they're from my spruce trees that are hundreds of years old on the property. And so spruce also has medicinal qualities, as you know, from Malcolm and Denis and different people who present here. And so literally when I'm on the computer, I'm doing something, I'll just stick it back here and I'll just chew on it for a couple minutes, switch sides, chew on it, and then just put it down. It doesn't taste bad. You don't get splinters. And you just do that a couple times of the week. That's it. So chewing stick. Yes, I know. Great question. It doesn't, unfortunately, for a couple of different reasons. One, that it disrupts the microbiome, right? So everything that we're putting in our mouth directly tells us a history and a present state to what's happening in the gut. And two, oftentimes we're only chewing with gum in one area. We have a pattern. And so we'll stick a piece of gum in. And as you know, you'll just be, and if you start to watch, you do it. And it's the same as we all have patterns, right? So I don't suggest gum for people. I prefer intermittent things. If we think we move our mindset back to prehistoric kind of times, what did we do back then, right? We used our jaws when we occasionally in between meals, we would chew on sticks, things like that, or when we were actually eating, right? We would use it, and that's all we need to do. Yeah, that's right. That's right, 100%. Yeah, you got it. Yeah, and skeletal posture. So I won't get into it today. I moved Bernie over there, but believe it or not, how you sit. So everyone's going to adjust, but you don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. But how you sit, I catch myself all the time because I'm on the computer, right? And I'm not really a phone person. Like obviously we all do it, but I try not to be. But on the computer, I find myself. And so it's constantly, okay, sit back. And it's not doing this. It's just having a nice straight line of the skeletal system that directly affects your jaw. Am I running out of time? Probably. Yeah. Almost. Yeah, so jaw exercises, that's something I go over. I was hoping to do some today. Maybe if we don't have a lot of questions, then I could do a couple. If everyone's okay with that. I do a whole bunch in the course. Yeah, so jaw exercises, and it's called the resting state of the jaw. So just building this constant pattern of recognizing where your jaw is at. Driving in the car, I say to my boys all the time, where's your tongue? How's your teeth? Where's your lips? And they're like, because it's just a good pattern. Because if you look around a room, people do this all the time, even when you don't know it. I have pictures of myself doing this. I'm like, what was I doing? Like, a bee can fly in there. What's happening? So yeah, so that's the state of the jaw, and that should be where your teeth are touching, just gently. You're not gritting your jaw. Your teeth are touching. The tongue is pressed to the roof of the mouth. And I get into a bit more detail in the long course, because sometimes people are like, but my tongue is too long for my mouth. And as you start doing these exercises, you're like, oh, damn, my tongue is too long for my mouth. What does that mean? Am I a lizard? But most people are like that. And the reason is because our palates go narrow in the front now. And before, our palates would be adapted to that distance and weight of our tongue. And now they're not. So you can still do it, and it works really well. You just have to adapt it a little bit. And then, yeah, so lips together, teeth touching, and the tongue, you suck it up to the top of the mouth. It's like right now I'm doing that. And when you do it, you can smile and not smile. You can smile and not smile. And there's lots kind of exercises, sorry. So your tongue should be suctioned to the upper part of your palate.
And teeth closed?
Teeth touching. So what I started to recognize with me is I had no problem. My lips were always together. I know it's hard to believe because I'm rambling right now, but my dad would disagree, I'm sure. But my lips were always touching together, but I had this space that if I didn't make my teeth touch first and then close my lips and stick my tongue up, that even though my lips were closed, they weren't touching. And I was like, oh my gosh, fascinating. That's because of my jaw. My jaw was forced into a position it didn't want to be in because my palate was too narrow at the front. That's why those two front teeth were a little bit crossed over, right? A little bit of malocclusion. And because of that, my jaw was adapted. So instead of working with my jaw, which I'm going to work with all of you with, anyone else, I was, a child. My parents were doing the best they could with the information they had. And they did what everyone else does, get dentistry, right? Yeah.
Quick question.
Yeah.
The positioning of the tongue.
Yeah.
So the tongue doesn't touch the back of the
front teeth? No. Great point. Yeah, I talk about that. That's right. I talk about that in the longer course because you don't want to force the front teeth forward over time, right? So the tip of the tongue does not touch the front of the teeth. The middle of your tongue suctions up. Yeah, it does take practice. But the more you do it, you're like, oh, this is really cool. Like, actually, I'm doing this. I'm not even thinking about it. Yeah. And then sleeping strategies. I like to do mouth taping. I know I said, I had a conversation with a friend probably about a year ago. And I said, if anybody walked in my house in the middle of the night, they'd be like, what the heck is going on? My children mouth tape. I mouth tape. Everybody in my house mouth tapes. So we mouth tape. I forgot to bring some mouth tape to show you. I'll bring it to the longer class. It's just 3M tape. So it can be removed easily. The kids, they use less adhesive stuff. But I don't recommend, you doing that to an infant or a child, obviously, without having some knowledge. But you just do a little mouth tape and it forces the breath back through the nose. We're supposed to breathe in and out through our nose, never through our mouth. Changes the microbiome of our gut, changes the microbiome of our mouth when we breathe through our mouth. So the more you retrain the jaw and retrain the nose to breathe in and out through the nose, the more easier it becomes. Yeah. So even in a resting state, instead of doing this, you end up with the mouth closed, you're doing that little exercise and you notice that your breath is nice and even. He's probably like, what's taking her so long? Okay, I'll just do this one little last page. So resting state of the jaw, you can see this. Oh, didn't change it. Sorry. You can see this gentleman here. So that's before and after. No jaw work was done. It was all done by exercising, like I'm telling you guys. Okay, and changing the diet. So do you see if you look at here through here, underneath his jaw, like there's no jaw there. right? So it looks like his face is chunkier than it is. I have clients who say that all the time to me. They're like, but my face is so chunky. I'm like, is it though? No, it's not. You have a beautiful face. Let's work with this. So yeah, so that's a perfect example right there. And so these are some of the things that we talk about. So jaw exercise is just as important as full body exercise. Like we talk about always walking, but how often do you walk your jaw, right? And these are some of the things that have come out of issues with the jaw, like we mentioned before. So mouth breathing, night and day. I see people all the time at night and day who do it. Gingivitis, higher rates of gingivitis. Endocarditis, believe it or not, it's directly related to heart issues and heart disease. Isn't that crazy? Your mouth is directly related to heart disease. Increase in heart attacks, increase in heart disease, like tenfold, not just a couple of incidents, like a lot. So it's very, very important that we're breathing properly, that we're developing our jaw properly, and that we're eating properly. Obviously, I want all of you to live for a really long time, but it's also quality of life, right? I don't want to see you when you're in your 70s, like in the hospital on 70 different pills. And like, that's not necessary. Like if we can start to make some changes now, then it'll help prevent that, right? Preventative medicine.
So,
yeah.
How does these have to do with the microbiome? Things change the mouth.
You're right. And it also has to do with when we breathe constantly in and out through our mouth, it lowers our oxygen rates and directly affects the heart. Yeah. So, and then it leads us into a situation where we'll have a higher rate of disease, higher rate of heart attack. Like it can lead to things like heart palpitations, right? Thyroid issues. Like it's all related. Everything works in unison, synergistically together, right? In our body. And so that's why sometimes for me, just a side note, when I see on social media, like everyone should take this, everyone should take that. I'm like, it drives me crazy because we're all different individuals and it should never be a blanketed advice, right? Now, there are some things that everybody needs, like we're talking about cod liver oil, vitamin A, vitamin D, but how you choose to get that stuff is completely up to you, right? You would think, but your nose does not take the influx of air when you're breathing through the mouth. It's very short. If you watch where it expands in the rib cage, we'll do some of that in the like the longer version, but the belly should rise, the front and back's ribs should expand. And I talk about just here quickly, the perfect breath is, it says the perfect man. This is really old, so nobody shit on me. Or sorry, Malcolm. The perfect man breathes as if he didn't, right? So we shouldn't be able to see the breath. We shouldn't be able to hear the breath. The perfect person breathes as if they didn't. And that's how we should be breathing all the time. So when we're breathing through our mouth, it becomes labored. We're only getting part of our lung capacity, right? When we breathe through our nose, it's essential that it goes all the way down front and back. Belly rises, belly falls. It's very, very rhythmic. If you watch a baby who doesn't have any issues going on with them, you watch a baby sleep. It's the belly that rises and falls, right? They're getting nice deep breath in and out. This is just a picture and, oh, sorry, I thought I changed it on here. Here we go. This is just a picture. Now, this isn't all mouth breathers. I have lots of mouth breathers who don't look like this at all, I promise you. But this is just to show you, this is some of the things that can happen. So some of the jaw challenges, I think Malcolm wants me to finish up here, but tongue touches. So that's something you guys can do. So basically you take the tip of the tongue, and you touch it in behind the front teeth, and you slide it all the way to the back as far as you can go with the mouth closed and the teeth touching. And when you do that, you'll feel the bottom part of your jaw expand a little bit, right? Can you feel it? Like it's like you're going to put your head forward a little bit and that expands. So that's something you can do. My kids do it all the time. And I recommend that. Another one is tongue presses. So that's where we suction up the tongue. I'll do it when I'm driving. I'll do it like 10 or 15 times. I recommend like 60, but that's a lot, I know. And then increase respiratory efficiency. Normal breath shouldn't be seen, shouldn't be heard. Like I said, closed mouth, lips together, teeth together. If you're doing anything other than that, you're overbreathing. You're overbreathing. Should be nice, rhythmic flux back and forth. Step counting. This is something really cool. You can pinch your nose, close your mouth, but first take an inhale, exhale, close your mouth, and then you can walk and see how many steps you can take. And when you release it, you don't want to do that. You want to release it and then breathe. But everyone has something that they do. They automatically breathe through the mouth. When you're out of breath, you're like, oh, I got to gasp for breath. Really, really try hard when you pinch the nose and close the mouth and do a little walkabout of your kitchen. Then when you release, focus. When you release, and then breathe. And again, you heard my breath, so try and do it without hearing the breath. Yep. So that's another one. We go into greater detail. And then another one to unclog the nose exercise that you can do, my kids do it all the time, is you take a breath in and out, plug your nose, drop your chin down, and open up. You do this as many times as possible until you feel that you need to take a breath. And again, when you need to take a breath, you release it. Breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. Okay? So those are just some of the things. There's lots of them. You're supposed to repeat it 3 times. Necessary steps for breathing, mouth taping. I can describe more information about that in the longer course, so you can talk after if you have time. Counting steps, like I said, increases respiration, and then unclogging the nose. I brought this. My kids do it like once a week, and it's just a little cheap one from Amazon. This is just nasal salt, like it's nothing. Just fill it up. You do it. So actually do it this way. A little button on the top. You can do it, and sometimes stuff comes out, and sometimes it doesn't. But that's one of the biggest factors to breathing, obviously, well through your nose is having a clear nose, right? And I suffered from sinus issues for a really long time before I realized that it was to do with my jaw. So how many other people suffer from that? Yeah. Yes, questions. Yes, before Malcolm gets upset with me. When to do it? I do it right before bed every night, every day. Now my kids are not so keen on wanting to do it every day because they're 11 and 5, but they do it. And especially when they get sick, my oldest, yeah, he's like, oh, Mom, can I do that? Yep, go do it. And he does it a couple times a day. And it really helps you get obviously over the cold quicker. And also too, it helps prevent. So right now we're doing construction in our house. So all of our vents, everything is full. So the boys are doing it a lot. Yeah. Just 1 sec. Yep. Yep.
20-month-old grandson.
Yep.
Justin.
Yeah.
How can I help him? Because I've seen ones that are mechanical.
Yep.
And they like them, just look at it, it sucks. But then it says to put the sealing solution in first. So it's like, really? That would be.
Yeah, so that's a great question. You know what? I didn't bring it today, but there is a Frida. It's F-E-R-D, Frida. It's a German brand. I used it on the boys when they were younger. And basically, this is going to sound really gross, but moms in here will know. It works so good. So it just has this little tube. It's got a filter, so nothing comes through to your mouth. The mom sucks on it, and they hold it up to the nose, and it sucks all the snot out, both sides. And then you just rinse it out, wash it, and that's it. And there's filters that you change. It's a German invention, and it works amazing.
Actually, it does the sucking, you put a flashing light on it. So
Yeah.
light.
I don't know about that one, so I can't comment on it, but I do like the idea of getting all that stuff out for someone, like for a child who can't do it.
She's sitting here and I'm saying, maybe take a break on that.
Yep.
She's like, "No, maybe it's just cheap and it's dairy and it's typical stuff from the store."
Right.
Is that
Yes, it would. Yes. So unpasteurized dairy is different because it has the digestive enzymes in order to break it down for your body to be able to, extract it and utilize it properly. Conventional pasteurized dairy will contribute to that. Yeah. See, this is everyone see? This is exactly what I'm talking about, right? This is, yes, that's right. Convince her to come to the workshop on May 5th or online if she can't make it in person. Yep. Yeah, I see it all the time in clinic. Yep. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I love it. So I talk about that in the extended, but as you can see, there's so much information.
I have just
Yeah. Yes.
and it's really
Yes.
so good.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah, that's okay. Whatever works. That's great. Yeah. So there's a couple other questions.
So our holistic dentist is recommending myofacial therapy.
Yep.
Would this be some of the same stuff?
So some of them do offer this, some of them don't. So I would ask for clarity, and I would say, hey, what is it specifically that you're looking to do? And then you can obviously, I brought some cards somewhere.
I have
Yeah. So, but you can just email me or whatever, and we can talk about it. Yep, you bet. Yep, someone else had a question. Yeah. Yeah, you bet. Yeah, I know, it's crazy, hey?
So the question was about exercising. Just got to repeat it for everybody in the room
Oh,
and
sure.
online.
Yeah.
Exercising and nose
Yeah.
breathing, emphasizing that.
Yeah, so it's absolutely something people talk about. My oldest tries to do it now, and he's like, wow, that's so super challenging. You really, even though it's a natural progression to want to breathe in and out through the mouth when we're out of breath, if you can, then you definitely should breathe in and out through the nose. I know athletes, I know some personally, and when during my athletic days, was years ago, I didn't know about this information, but I definitely would have tried it. They tape their mouth on purpose when they work out. So you can experiment and see. I mean, at the end of the day, you can just take it off, right? It's not stuck on there. Yeah. Sometimes though, it can.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
So you guys enjoy that? Was that informative? Right on. Okay, well, I want to keep everything on time.
Yep.
Jen has so much more to share, but we're going to do a full length course
Yeah.
In May.
May,
She's
yep.
got one on permaculture coming up in
Yep.
a week and a half or so.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're going to just take a break. And then at 2 o'clock, we're going to get into sulfur, MSM, DMSO. What are they? How do they work? How will it benefit your body? We'll take a 15-minute break. And at the top of the hour, 2 o'clock, we'll get started again. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.